मन जाकर राखो जी, गिरधारी लाल। मन जाकर राखो जी।
धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुत्सवः मामकाः पांडवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत् संजय।
देवाय ओम शांति 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 हरि ओम तत्सत. In the last few episodes or discourses, we talked about the development of Sanatana Dharma, but the origin of Sanatana Dharma, the Upanishads, are difficult to understand, so we also mentioned that Vyasmuni decided to put those Upanishadic knowledge into a format that will be more palatable to the worldly people. And in so doing, he had to even devise the entire Mahabharata, what we call, to get the average worldly person interested in religion and hopefully ultimately to spirituality. So the entire purpose of Mahabharata is not war, but in the name of war to convey the dharma. And in the middle of this large volume or the teaching of dharma, Srimad Bhagavad Gita is introduced so that we may understand its surrounding, its purpose, and ultimately the highest spiritual knowledge. Today then we are going to speak of and begin the message of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. You may imagine that the war between the kingly family Kuru was the last name of the family, the kingly family, and we can also imagine that they do not have the difficulty of finding food, clothes, and normal pleasures, or all the normal human satisfactions that we can hope for. A king or kingly family would have it. Then why would they have a need for a war among themselves if food, clothes, legitimate pleasures, even sometimes illegitimate pleasures, they had all the means, and all of them could have had it. And yet there was a war. And therefore it tells us that it's not just a minimum requirement of human beings, food, clothes, and comforts, pleasures, and security, which they all had it, yet there was a war. And we find that there is greed, which cannot be fulfilled. There is jealousy among the family members. As we will notice, Duryodhana was jealous about the good virtues of his cousins. So then, this jealousy, pride, greed, all these are the hidden factors that cause us friction and ultimately wars. It is not just food and clothes. So we do not, this leads us to believe that merely being physically happy does not give the inner peace until we can also overcome these inner enemies which we have just mentioned. So when we talk about the war between the Kuru family, that is between Kauravas and Pandavas, we are actually talking about the war between virtues and vices, and these people merely represent the virtues and vices. And also, it is not a battle 3 or 5 thousand years ago between a kingly family, but the idea is to let us know that the war is constantly going on within our own conscious, within our own heart. This inner warfare that we cannot see is the warfare that is ultimately to be won, and the entire purpose of Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavad Gita is to point out that we have within us these enemies, and also some good qualities, some evil qualities, what we call vices and virtues, and there is always a battle between those two. So ultimately, all of us are concerned. It is our battle to win. We have to fight it within our conscious vices and virtues, and then, of course, we will be taught how to even go beyond that. So, if we keep that in mind, that the battle is not necessarily a physical battle, it is only an example that we have taken. It is, as I say, a metaphor or allegory or a simile, and it is necessary sometimes in order to convey the message, but it is then the war within our own heart. So let's look at it now from physical point of view. The first chapter then merely will give us that what is happening on the battlefield. The first chapter's title is Arjuna Vishada Yogaha. Srimad Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. I probably mentioned that before. There are 700 sloks and 18 chapters, and each chapter has a title that tells us that through the means of the title we can achieve yoga, or we can connect ourselves to God. Yoga always means self-realization or becoming one with God, like a river merging in the ocean, the example we often give. So our connection with our Creator, and since we are separated from our Creator, our whole objective of this life is to find a way and means to connect ourselves, and that is yoga. Now, the title Arjuna Vishada Yoga means Arjuna is going to be suffering depression, frustration, confusion, doubts, and fears in this particular situation where he is facing a war against his own cousins, against his own relatives, and his friends and well-wishers. So it is an anxiety, confusion, and he will have to think deeply what is going on when he is facing his very dear relatives with whom he has to fight. So then he comes for that particular reason, as we will see, that depression is the problem with Arjun to begin with, or frustration, or not finding true happiness, or missing the joys of life, or missing out the peace and happiness which we are all looking for. So if that is the thing, then we all are concerned about this particular title, that we do go through this depression, frustrations, confusion, doubts, and we sometimes wonder the purpose of life and what do we do about it, where do we go from here, because all of us are looking for peace and joy, but we are not finding it. And Arjun is going to feel the same way in this first chapter. But the beautiful thing is that even if we have confusion, if we have problems which are inevitable, which has been there whether we like it or not from day one until now, through the creation, from the day one the creation was made, we always have the dualities. So it is not a question of why the duality is there, but how to overcome it in spite of being in the midst of duality, how we can navigate our life to the ultimate goal of reaching our Creator. So the beautiful thing is that though Arjuna is confused and depressed, and does not know what to do, he still can connect himself to God if he has the right advice and if God is on his side, which is the case in this particular case, because the Pandavas have been listening to Sri Krishna Bhagavan. The war is between virtues and vices, and the Lord is in the middle to help us. It is the same thing within our own heart also. God is always within us to help us, and whenever we have strife between vices and virtues, then through wisdom we can overcome the vices through wisdom and then even overcome both of them. So Arjun, having taken the side of Sri Krishna, or always seeking his help, has a kind of security or insurance, if you will say so, and that insurance, that security is always fruitful and has been successful. So Arjuna Vishada Yoga then means that even through the difficulties in our life, if we have wisdom, if we will follow the wisdom of the saints, if we will be sincere and listen and obedient and humble, then we will certainly overcome no matter how great a difficulty we may be facing. I don't believe that any one of us in our life will face as great a situation or difficulty that Arjun is going to face, because he is going to fight his own relatives, the dearest and nearest one, who have raised him and who has always respected his relatives like Bhishma Pitama, and he unfortunately is put into such a situation where he may have to fight his dearest grandfather, who is Bhishma Pitama. We hope that we don't have that situation, but we still sometimes have terrible situation. At least they look so at that particular time, then certainly we can also overcome that. Now, if you can imagine the battle, let's let's picture the battle that the two armies are on two sides. On the left side, let's say the Pandavas and their army, and on the right side, the Kauravas or the cousins on the right side. And there in the middle of these two armies, we have Arjun, whose chariot is being driven by Shri Krishna Bhagavan. In other words, our body is a chariot. We are Arjun, and if we learn to listen to Shri Krishna Bhagavan within us, the soul or the God Himself, who is trying to direct our life, then we can understand and relate ourselves directly to this battle, that we are in the middle, our body is the chariot, we are the Arjun, and Shri Krishna Bhagavan is also within us, prompting us whenever we are in difficulties. It is like a clock ticking. But sometimes, because of other noises we make, we don't listen to that ticking of the Lord within us. The inner voice is always saying something to us, but because of our ignorance, our attention being not there, we don't quite listen and understand the message from the Lord, what we have to do in this particular situation. So now then, the battle, the left side are the Pandavas, right side is the Kauravas, in the middle Arjun's chariot is there, standing there with Sri Krishna Bhagavan, advising him what to do, why to do, how to do, when to do. All the detailed directions will be given to him if the war has to be fought. And the war has to be fought. It has been decided that it is a just war, it is a war between good and evil, it is a war in which we must fight to destroy the evil. If we don't destroy the evil, then we will be certainly be considered coward, and cowards don't have a place in this world. Now, again, the whole plot is such that just like a camera or a video, there is Sanjay and Dhritarashtra. This conversation actually is going on between Dhritarashtra, who is the father of the Kauravas, and the elder of the Kuru family. Kuru is the last name of the family, so Kuru goes for both Kauravas and Pandavas. So these two brothers' families, of which Dhritarashtra is the elder one. Pandu has already passed away. Dhritarashtra is blind. he cannot see the war. So he needs to be told, he wants to know what is going on in the war, and the only way he can know is by explanation through Sanjay. Sanjay is a neutral person, honest man. He wishes well to both sides, including Dhritarashtra, even though Dhritarashtra sometimes doesn't like his portraying the war properly. But Sanjay does the best, just like a video that does not take any part. It just represents exactly what's going on. Camera does not take side, it simply takes the picture and tells you. Sanjay is just like that, like a film. He exactly tells what is going on the battlefield. When we think about life also, if we look at the situation and don't color with our opinions, but merely present it just the way it is happening, then I think most of our problems will be solved, because what is happening has to be accepted. That is reality, that has happened, it is truth. But we don't want to accept that, we want to color it with our opinions. We say we wish it happened this way, wish it did not happen this way, and yet we know that it is happening. So the important thing is that what we want to learn from this message and these events is how can we apply this situation to our life? Where does it apply to me? Where do I fail? And what do I learn from this message? And we will try to point out as often as we can so that we can benefit from the message for our own life, because we are the Arjun, we are facing the problems and we want to solve it. And we know that God is available to us. So then Dhritarashtra, who is blind, is being told by Sanjaya what is going to happen in the war, every event. Now what do we mean by blind? I don't think that Vyasmuni really means that he was blind by eyes, but blindness means then when we are under the influence of lust and greed, we cannot reason, we cannot see the truth. We become so blind that we get carried away. There is no reasoning. And when we have no reasoning, no rational understanding of a situation, then we would be considered blind whether we have eyes or not. It is not the physical eyes that we are talking about, but it is the eye of wisdom. It's wisdom that what is our ultimate good, as we have said. And what we are going to talk about is the ultimate good, the final good beyond which there is no other good. Reaching this particular good or the ultimate state, we would not have to struggle. It is like end of the game where we have won the game, and it's like Olympic, you have got the gold medal. So this is our goal. So when we say Dhritarashtra was blind, he was blind because of his son's greed, and he was agreeing with him even though it was wrong. There was no rationality about it, and yet he approved it because of his attachment, because of his move for his son and his families. He had himself the greed, and so all these things, vices, then really makes us blind. So blindness then means the not able to understand the truths the way it should be understood. Having said that, then the war, let us say that it is about time the war is going to begin, and Dhritarashtra now poses a question, because unless you ask or pose a question, we cannot find the answer. So Dhritarashtra is posing a question or a request, if you want to say so, to Sanjay, that Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samavetaha yutsavaha mamakaha pandavaha cha eva kim akurvata Sanjaya. Hey, O Sanjay, what have my sons and my brother's sons, or the Pandus, who have gathered on this field, very eager to fight in this field of religion, Dharma Kshetra, the field of religion, and the field of Kuru. Kuru means the family. Family is also a field, and this whole life, the family life, the Kuru Kshetra, Kshetra means field. We will talk about why the word field has been used. Dharma Kshetra means the field of religion, and Kurukshetra means the field of family. The family is Kuru here, and it is also our own family, and our family life is a farm. It is like farming. As you know, California is particularly well blessed with the beautiful farmlands, as we know in the Central Valley. Farming is very important, and farming our life is very important. If we know the farming properly, then of course we will also understand farming of our own life, and that is why the word farming is introduced here. Land should be fertile. We should remove the weeds from, if we are going to have a successful crop. Weeds, stones, holes, all these things has to be removed. Then we should be tilling. We have to get a tractor and till the land. Then we should be fertilizing the land properly so it gets the nourishing food. We should have proper seed so that it can have growth of the crop. There should be watering, there should be sunlight, there should be air, and ultimately we must also protect the crop, otherwise the animals may destroy, or the bugs and germs and worms. So in proper agriculture or proper successful growth of whether it is corn, wheat, or whether it is orchard or vineyards, these are the things that a good farmer will have to watch. Again, the land should be fertile, it should be weeds should be removed, fertilizing should be done properly, there should be proper seed, watering, sunlight, air, and protecting the crop. Now, when it comes to agriculture or uh, fertilizing our land or trying to grow the crop within our life, what crop we are talking about as far as we are concerned in our life? Then fertilizing land or the fertile land is this human body. Our body itself is a fertile land, and the weeds, stones, and holes in the farm is nothing but vices in us, and we'll be talking about the vices and virtues. Tilling the farm is disciplining ourselves. Unless we discipline ourselves, control ourselves, we cannot have a right crop. Fertilizing means forbearance. We must be able to bear the difficulties in life, things that don't happen the way we want, yet we have to do the best we can. That is fertilizing. Proper seed is sattvika sanskar. In other words, we must have some good karmas of the past, we have good aspirations, good nature, what we might call, leading towards happiness and towards God. Watering is abhyas. In other words, without water there is no crops, and without repeatedly trying to understand what is being told to us, because at the first task or first listening we hardly get the real deep message. So repetition is almost necessary. It is a sweet repetition, it is desirable repetition, it is necessary repetition in not only in the spiritual world but even in our physical world. In order to become expert in any field, we have to repeat that task again and again and again in order to become perfect. And perfection itself is a very important aspect there. Sunlight is knowledge. We should have knowledge and devotion. Air is faith, and protecting the crop is humility. Without humility, we will not be able to protect even if we have the crop. So, when we think about it, then we have to farm our life. This kshetra, this field in which we are going to battle or fight, this human body then in itself is a battlefield. Vices are the one we have to fight with, and we can fight with only discipline, that is like weapons. Forbearance, we should have sattvic sanskar. We must repeatedly, we should not get discouraged if we are forgetful. If we forget, we try again, again and again. And thus, with knowledge, devotion, faith, and humility, we will be able to not only win the war, because it is not just winning and losing, but after we have won the war, all the noises have gone, we will have peace, we will have joy, we will have bliss, we will have satisfaction, and that is what we are looking for. But we cannot have that without the war. So now then when we say that this dharma kshetra, this field of religion is what we are going to talk about, in reality there is only one dharma. There is only one dharma. It is pure love. What Mahatma Gandhi used to call non-violence, we call it freedom in this Bhagavad Gita, what we call realizing Satyanarayan, Sat, Chit and Anand. These are the words that we will be often using, and we will try to explain also, because this is the description of God which is very difficult to understand, and yet these are the words that sages have realized that this is the best way of explaining our realization of God. So there is only one dharma, but there are many paths. That dharma is to realize ourselves, and therefore there are other dharmas. We may be dividing that into tamasic, rajasic and sattvic dharma, three kinds of dharmas. Those are the paths, and the ultimate dharma or self-realization is our goal. So dharma then is a very big word. We normally speak of religion as dharma, but we don't quite explain or go deep enough to understand what we really mean by religion, what we really mean by God, what we really mean by the path towards God. All these things remains in a confused state. We don't quite understand, and therefore we have this friction. We have mentioned other day that there are major religions in this world, and all of them believe in wonderful principles that have been taught. They all say there is one God, and yet we have so much of terrorism going on, particularly in the name of religion. Religion teaches us, unfortunately, things that creates friction, that it is our God that should be the God of the world or everybody else, and therefore we will then be led to believe that everybody else should believe in our God, and that creates friction. Then we may use force to convert other people. I think these are some of the problems of the major religions, particularly of Christianity and Islam, who really have been taught, or at least that's what they make us believe, that we have to convert the whole world to our own God or our own religion. The Sanatan Dharma found this out right from the beginning, that every individual should be kept free, that the God is really one, that we don't need to make divisions or sampradayas or denominations or even religions. There is one big religion, what we call truth or love. There is only one God, that all of us should be left free to practice according to our sanskars, that we should be led into developing ourselves rather than try to mold you into my belief or in one belief, because that then creates the problem and friction that we have been seeing over the last 5,000 years. And yet we have not found the solution. I personally feel that if we follow Sanatan Dharma, which again does not want to limit to you, it wants to keep you just the way you are, whatever way, wherever you were born, whatever belief you may have, man or a woman, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, or even those who don't believe in God. All are children of God, and all of us can live the way we want to live without each pushing others that they are better than them, or they are superior, or they have better wisdom. I think that if we stop that, and if we start practicing what we have been taught, like in Christianity, if we start practicing the message of Jesus Christ on the mountain, then I think that we would have, and if we really practice it, we would have no problem. You will even stop preaching, because your life will tell us what Jesus Christ is teaching us. Same thing will be with Hindus, with Muslims, and with Buddhists, and all religions. If they simply practice what they are taught, I think that other people will see the beauty of it, and there will be no friction, and there will be no need to have the friction and complexes and this terrorism that is created in the name of converting others to our religion, we will be able to eliminate that. This should be the one goal that we should keep in mind while we are studying this thing when we talk about universal religion or global religion. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.